Inflammatory diseases of the bowel are usually idiopathic diseases caused by a dysregulated immune system. There are two major types of inflammatory bowel disease: Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis. Crohn's disease is an inflammatory disease that can affect any part of the gastrointestinal tract, including the mouth and the anus. It's usually characterized by abdominal pain and non-bloody diarrhea. So the key feature of this disease is that it has skipped lesions along the GI tract. This is a key factor as it helps differentiate with ulcerative colitis. Although rectal sparing is typical, it is not a constant feature of Crohn's disease. Let's go through the pathogenesis first. So Crohn's disease is because of a chronic Th1-mediated inflammatory response. It starts as a focal inflammatory infiltrate around the crypt, which then evolves into a transmural inflammation and ends up with the formation of non-caseating granulomas. The most common site involved with Crohn's disease is the terminal ileum. So usually a patient comes in with colicky pain, bloody stool, could be non-bloody, and kidney stones. Now, kidney stones here is a point to note. These kidney stones contain calcium and oxalate. The decreased fat absorption in Crohn's disease results in the binding of calcium to the fat instead of binding calcium to oxalate. So the amount of unbound oxalate accumulates into stones. Amongst other complications, the other most common complication is the fistulas. And the most common fistulas are the anorectal fistulas. Here's the diagram of the anus, and these are the ulcers here. These anorectal ulcers here become so severe that they burn through and create a new canal. Toxic megacolon is another complication and is serious and life-threatening. Intra-abdominal abscesses can also occur, which is essentially a pus or inflected fluid around the inflamed tissue. This can result in fever and chills. Adhesions can also happen by formation of scar tissues between bowel loops and the inner lining of the abdominal wall. It's usually seen in small and large bowels, but in females it can also happen between the fallopian tube. When it comes to testing, numerous things can be indicative of Crohn's disease, like ulcers, abscesses, fistulas, bowel obstruction, or distension due to toxic megacolon. After a physical examination, the next thing to do is order a radiograph. The key feature of Crohn's disease is Coombs sign, which describe the prominent mesenteric vessels extending towards the inflamed segments of the small bowels and look like the teeth of a comb. Other tests include a stool culture that has to be done before a definitive diagnosis to rule out infectious or C. diff-induced colitis. Abdominal radiography will help identify if patients have any kidney or gallbladder stones and any defects in the colon such as toxic megacolon, which is a medical emergency. A barium swallow scan can also help with identifying any obstructions. A radiological sign is seen with this method and is known as the string sign of Cantor, which refers to the string-like appearance of a contrast-filled bowel loop caused by severe narrowing. Amongst all this, the investigation of choice would be to do a CT and MRI to get specifics of the defect. A colonoscopy or ileoscopy is useful in identifying abscesses and ulcers, and a biopsy can confirm the type of inflammatory bowel disease. There are also antibodies that you can test. An ASCA screens for anti-Saccharomyces cerevisiae antibody. A PANCA scans for perinuclear anti-neutrophil cytoplasmic antibodies. In Crohn's disease, there's a positive ASCA and a negative PANCA. The treatment is usually pharmacological. A 5-aminosalicylic agent is used for mild diseases, and the best initial therapy is used with mesalamine. Corticosteroids are used for flares. Immunosuppressive agents such as infliximab are good for those with fistula formation. Antibiotics are involved for patients with perianal involvement. Antidiarrheal medications are given, and you also prescribe vitamins to replace the lost fat-soluble vitamins. Unfortunately, Crohn's disease can't be treated with surgery. The next disease is ulcerative colitis. Ulcerative colitis is an inflammation and ulceration of the colon and the rectum due to a chronic autoimmune disease. The disease course typically consists of an intermittent exacerbation, alternating with long periods of complete symptomatic remission, as in the symptoms come and go. It commonly involves the rectum and may extend proximally and continually to involve other parts of the colon. So far, there isn't a direct cause identified and is considered autoimmune, but it is associated with a Th2 cell response, resulting in a loss of tolerance to enteric bacteria. This type of ulcer, however, does not develop into granulomas. So clinically, you would have a patient that comes in with diarrhea with blood in it. They also have mucus discharge from the rectum. There will be abdominal pain, and recurrent diarrhea will cause dehydration. The severity of the disease can be graded based on these symptoms. So mild disease will have bleeding with less than 4 bowel movements a day. A moderate disease is considered bleeding with more than 4 bowel movements a day. And a severe disease is bleeding with more than 4 bowel movements a day, along with a history of a systemic illness and hypoalbuminemia. So why do we mention the systemic illness here? Ulcerative colitis is known to be associated with certain primary systemic conditions, which include primary sclerosing cholangitis, recurrent subcutaneous abscesses, multiple sclerosis, and immunobullous skin disease. The most common one here is primary sclerosing cholangitis. The hyperproteinemia is the decreased protein in the intestinal tract with subsequent excretion. So patients have puffy eyes and edema. Diagnosis is best made with endoscopy and biopsy. With this, you can find abnormal mucosa with or without ulceration. The lesions will be of uniform inflammation indicative of ulcerative colitis, and the extent of the disease can be seen. The biopsy should be limited to the mucosa and the submucosa. CT is used to rule out differential diagnosis. A barium enema examination is the mainstay of radiologic investigation. In a barium enema investigation, you see a lead pipe appearance due to the lack of colon features. This is due to the shortening of the colon secondary to fibrosis and the loss of haustoration. If barium enema examination is contraindicated, you can use a radionucleotide study. So treatment is also pharmacological here. Sulfasalazine is a 5-aminosalicylate drug coupled with a sulfapyridine. It is a prodrug that is poorly absorbed in the proximal bowel and is coupled with the sulfa. So the drug is activated by the flora in the large bowel, which allows the 5-ASA to exert its anti-inflammatory effect on the colonic mucosa by inhibiting the prostaglandin synthesis. Mesalazine is also another 5-ASA containing molecule and is better tolerated. So a patient with acute exacerbation of severe ulcerative colitis is defined as the following. They should have more than 6 bowel movements per day, and at least one of the following: fever, hemoglobin level of more than 10.5, a heart rate of 90, a ESR of more than 30, or a C-reactive protein level of more than 30. This requires hospitalization and treatment. An IV high-dose corticosteroid such as hydrocortisone of 400 mg or methylprednisolone of 60 mg is given. If the patient is steroid resistant, infliximab can be used. A budesonide enema is mentioned in books but doesn't cure the condition, although it may help relieve the symptoms. If medical therapy fails, then a proctolectomy is considered. It's a surgical removal of the colon and the rectum. So just forgot to mention that there are also serological markers with ulcerative colitis, but in this, the ANSA is negative and the p-ANCA is positive. So one other type of colitis is the pseudomembranous colitis. It's an acute inflammation. It's also an acute inflammatory disease of the colon. It usually occurs because of the antibiotic use that changes the balance of the normal gut flora, resulting in the overgrowth of C. diff, and the large production of toxins result in the inflammation. In mild cases, it's just minimal swelling and inflammation, but in severe cases, the mucosa is covered with loosely adherent nodules or diffuse exudates. These nodules are about 2 to 5 millimeters in size. So this is usually seen in patients who have received antibiotics in the previous 3 months, or a hospitalized patient with more than 48 hours of admission. So patients are usually seen with profuse, watery, green, foul-smelling stools, and they also have cramping and abdominal pain. There is also an increase in temperature due to the inflammation. There are multiple workups that you can do. Stool cultures can be done, but because reports are usually slow, you can also do an enzyme immunoassay for glutamate dehydrogenase. This enzyme is released by C. diff. You can also do an EIA for toxin A and B, and the ideal test is to do a PCR for C. diff gene. You treat it with vancomycin, and if treatment doesn't work, then you have to do a fecal transplantation. And that's the overview for all the inflammatory diseases of the bowel. Thank you for watching.